you to bleed for me.
Happy Tuesday, hockey fans. That's right. It's time for another episode of Shoot, another Flyers Show episode number 22, coming your way here live on YouTube, on Twitter, Facebook, and all of the other places that you can catch the episodes here. Once again, I'm Christopher Babos here with Philly Sports Network, and we have an awesome show lined up for you today. I'm not going to talk your ear off all of that much. There's only 2 games left in the Flyers season, and Philadelphia is once again on the outside looking in, heading towards the playoff race. Our guest series continues in an interview that I was really excited and ended up really well with Will James of Philly Hockey Now, one of the newest additions to the Philadelphia Flyers press box, to get his thoughts on the Flyers season. And then an awesome look at Penn State hockey and their trip to the Frozen Four. Will was an alum of Penn State, graduated, had the chance to go out to St. Louis to the Frozen Four to cover the Penn State hockey team. Even though they lost in the semifinals, it was still an awesome experience and a great chat with Will to kind of hear about the ability to, go and cover the Flyers here in Philadelphia and then have the chance to cover a massive NCAA hockey game like that. So that one clocks in about half an hour once again. So like I said, a shorter episode from me before we get to Will. But before we get to that, I always like to give a quick look at what's going on in Flyers land. And right now, the Flyers at the bottom of the Metro standings and looking up 31, 36, and 9 is the record. That doesn't sound right. I feel like I updated that. So let me check myself on that. Yeah, that is incorrect. 33, 37, and 10 is the record for the Flyers with 76 points. San Jose, 52 points, Chicago 59, and Nashville 66 are in the bottom 3. And then you've got the cluster the Flyers could still find themselves at the bottom of. Seattle's got 76 points, Boston 75, Buffalo 77, and Pittsburgh with 78. So Flyers could get some help with some extra ping pong balls in that lottery draft coming up during the playoffs based off of how the next 2 games go. Philadelphia getting ready to play tonight against the Columbus Blue Jackets, the last home game of the season at Wells Fargo Center. Columbus still fighting for their playoff lives. Right now, they need 2 regulation wins. They also need no points in Montreal's final home game against the Carolina Hurricanes tomorrow night. And then the Islanders will play on Thursday, knowing their fate, knowing if they will need to pull out that regulation win and have a chance, or if that game 82 at UBS Arena is going to be for nothing. Sorry, it's not at UBS Arena. It would be Nationwide Arena in Columbus on Thursday. So the NHL speeding towards the playoffs, and it's always an exciting time of year in April. Final Flyers game of the season is going to be in Buffalo. A team also sitting towards the bottom of the standings and going to miss out on the playoffs this season. Buffalo a 1-point lead over the Flyers in the standings, 77 points to 76 points. I always like to give a weekly highlight as something special as I get the chance to talk to the lovely people that check into our broadcasts here. And if you ever wonder why I typically am wearing the same thing, it's because I have a lot of pride in the logo. That's right here. I know how to show it. There we go. The Hershey Cubs logo, established 2021 by the Bruce Boudreau family, and I'm honored to be a scout for them. And this past weekend, I had the chance to go up to Hershey. Had an absolutely incredible time looking at some amateur hockey players playing Tier 3, paying to play the sport and to hopefully get a chance to play in this NCAA D3, D2 college, and those kind of opportunities. And the Hershey Cubs are an awesome organization to give these players that opportunity. It's operated as close to anything as far as a junior or a major junior team that I've seen. They share some of the facilities and even some staff with the AHL's Hershey Bears. So I came away very, very impressed. So with my weekly highlight, I wanted to highlight that experience. I had the lovely opportunity of meeting Bruce Boudreau and some of his lovely family. Crystal Boudreau, his wife, basically runs the franchise. Brady, one of their sons, is the head coach for the Premier League team. And then the guy all the way on the left of the right of the photo is Christian, who's the head of the elite team for the USPHL Hershey Cubs. So that was one of my highlights, and they got to catch me in my element, which was pretty cool. And doing some hockey scouting and something that I never quite dreamed that I would do. So shout out to the Hershey Cubs, and shout out to, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Lauren Gittle, the official photographer for the Cubs. Did a great job this weekend capturing that event. So talking about the Philadelphia Flyers once again, because that's why we're here and why the Philadelphia Flyers have upcoming, and that's the offseason. A ton of picks coming up in the NHL draft. Something we'll get into with Will, as the Flyers have a huge opportunity coming up this summer. We'll see how they end up approaching things, whether they use those picks to select players, to make trades. I don't exactly think that the offer sheet route is coming, but I mean, it definitely could be something that happens. So it'll be interesting to see how Danny Briere, how Keith Jones, and how the Flyers front office decides to proceed this season. Flyers are 6-2 since Brad Shaw was installed as head coach in Philadelphia. And they're averaging 4.5 goals a game in those 7 games, 11 out of 14 standings points. Not ideal, but ultimately might not hurt the Flyers all of that much, as they still look to be in that 4th through 6th range as of right now based on standings points. Building confidence for the young players. Matvei Michkov had a huge offensive spurt since Shaw was installed as that bench boss, and it was exciting to see. It slowed down a little bit over the last couple of games, as one would expect. He's still good for an average of about 1 breakaway, which we haven't seen in a while for the Flyers, outside of, I guess, the power kill from last year, getting the breakaways on the shorthanded opportunities. But other than that, it's exciting to see the offensive skills for Michkov. I think it's going to be a very exciting offseason as he continues to learn the game in North America and grow his skill set, and to see who the Flyers are able to add this offseason to help him out in the lineup. Another player that is really exciting right now, 23-year-old Tyson Forster, has 24 goals in the year, 17 assists, 5 goals in over 2 games against New York. So really exciting to see what he can do, and if he can continue to get consistent minutes in the lineup and potentially even get some power play time. I could easily see him as a 30-goal scorer in the NHL. His best attribute is his shot. Almost as soon as I saw it, I felt it was an NHL level shot, and he needs to have confidence in being able to fire the puck and be NHL goaltenders. I think he's gained some of that this year with the 24 goals. And excited to see what he can do going into next year and 24-year-old season. So it's going to be a big year and a big offseason for Tyson Forster and all of the young Flyers, really. The downside, obviously, to the winning streak is that draft lottery consideration. One of my favorite accounts to follow is AV Appleyard, Alexander Appleyard. Right now, the Flyers go 0-2. And their last game, they still finished with 75 points. They're looking at the 4th pick, at least based off of the ping pong ball lottery odds. They end up picking up an overtime win. They get a point. You move that up to fifth. They get a regulation win. They get 2 points. You're looking at sixth. So the Flyers are still in a position to control their destiny, so to speak, but hockey players are ultimately going to end up attempting to win hockey games. That's the mentality. I haven't met too many hockey players that like to lose, and it's not something that you can really do at the NHL level to ask them to lose. So I think you're going to see fight tonight. They know they can play spoiler against the Columbus Blue Jackets, so that's going to be interesting to see how the Flyers come out against that and the energy level on Thursday night against Buffalo. Taking a quick look at the playoff situation, because it's a big night in the NHL. There's a couple of playoff chances to clinch tonight. The main one being Toronto, clinching the top seed in the Atlantic Division to face Ottawa in the first round. They need a point in any capacity, so getting to overtime against the Buffalo Sabres would get it done, and Toronto would officially punch their ticket into the postseason. Montreal hanging on to that wild card number 2 spot. They just need Philly to grab a regulation win. If Philadelphia denies the Columbus Blue Jackets a standings point, Montreal heads to the playoffs tonight. In the Western Conference, Minnesota will get a playoff spot if they get 1 point against the Anaheim Ducks, or the St. Louis Blues lose to the Utah Hockey Club in any fashion, or the Calgary Flames lose to the Vegas Golden Knights in any fashion. St. Louis can clinch a playoff spot. They have regulation win against Utah, or they get a point against Utah, and then a Flames loss to Vegas in any fashion. And then the other rounded out opportunity, 1 point against Utah, a Minnesota regulation loss, and a Flames regulation loss would send St. Louis to the postseason. So once again, episode number 22, Shoot Another Flyer Show. I'm Chris Babos, and I'm very proud to present our guest series this week featuring Will James from Philly Hockey Now. So I will be back in a little bit to wrap up this show with gritty questions and answer, but enjoy. We recorded this on Monday morning. Apologies for some of the early noise. He was outside in the nature, so there's only so much you can do about that one, but we got it leveled off. And I hope you enjoyed the interview. Once again, Will James. It's going to be WMJ Sports on Twitter. Flyers beat writer for Philly Hockey Now. I hope you all enjoy it, and I'll see you after the interview. 2 of Shoot Another Flyer Show. We continue our guest series today with somebody I'm extremely excited to bring on. He's a new member in the Flyers media press area with Philly Hockey Now, William James for WMJ Sports on Twitter. He's a Penn State alumni, so we'll get into that in a little bit. Really excited to cover that. Will, how you doing today?
Doing all right, Chris. How are you?
I can't complain. Any day we get to talk about Flyers hockey is absolutely lovely, even though the season's wrapping up a lot quicker than we were hoping to this kind of season. Definitely didn't go as we all hoped back in September, but you know what? It might ultimately be the best thing for the franchise. But we're going to start with something that's not the best thing for the franchise, at least on the surface. And that's going to be Alexei Kolosov and his situation with the rumor circulating that he's headed back to Russia. What do you know, Will?
It's an interesting situation. Yesterday, the reports came out. Anthony Sanfilippo from Snow the Goalie put out, I think he said it on his podcast, that he believes that Kolosov is heading back to Belarus in the offseason and that he wouldn't be going down to Lehigh for the Phantoms postseason run, which ultimately made sense. He clearly didn't seem to be a fit down in Lehigh. They sent him back up after, I want to say he played maybe 15 games down there this season. I forget the exact number, but didn't play a whole lot down there. Came back up to the Flyers, and when everyone would think that he would go back down, he ended up staying pretty much until the couple weeks after the trade deadline, after the roster deadline. He ended up coming back up, and he's going to finish the season out with the Flyers. He played likely his last game with the Flyers, if these rumors are true, against the Rangers this past Wednesday. And I like to say he got a lot of run support in that game.
Yeah, you can definitely. Well, speaking of run support, the Philadelphia Flyers axed John Tortorella and then started filling the net with goals. They're 6-2 since Tortorella was outcast out of Philadelphia, 11 standings points. But ultimately, they're still looking to be pretty good chance with those ping pong lottery balls, not first or second, unfortunately. But you can see a world where the Flyers pick somewhere in that 4, 5, 6, 7 range, which should bring a good talented prospect to Philadelphia.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. This draft it's very top loaded. I will say that, but I don't think that it's top five or even top four or bust for the Flyers this season. I think there's a lot of good centers in this draft, which is
Mm-hmm.
something really important to keep an eye on, and it's something that's kind of helping me keep my head on straight in terms of all of this winning when they're looking so close to that high end draft pick, and all of a sudden they're winning games in the post Tortorella era. But something that I always keep reminding myself is that there's six top 10 worthy centers in this draft. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have your Michael Misa, who's going to go top two. James Higgins will likely go top five. Those are the two premier ones. But then you can keep going further down. You have Caleb Denoye, who is looking pretty good. Jake O'Brien, another really good
Mm-hmm.
looking prospect. Roger McQueen, who could ultimately end up being one of the best prospects in this draft if he can stay healthy. You got to
Mm-hmm.
avoid another Caden Lindstrom situation there. But there's a lot of good prospects, especially at the center position in this draft. So the Flyers winning these games is quite a good thing to me. You get to see a lot of
Mm-hmm.
improvement, getting to see what Tyson Forrester can do when he's
Yes.
being not being told he has to be a primary checker. He can focus on his offensive game and he can maybe cheat a little bit more than he would have prior. Or even then, it just looks like he's more willing to shoot, which is really
Mm-hmm.
good to see. And another
And
guy
that's
that's
his best
benefited.
talent. His
Oh yeah,
best talent is
absolutely.
his shot, so he should
Yeah,
be shooting every chance he gets.
but you look at another guy like Jacob Peltier, who has taken a. I mean, granted, that step's been coming since he got the line boost, not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
since Tortorella was dismissed. But you look at Jacob Peltier playing, and you start to think like, all right, well, the Flyers are winning games, and maybe they're screwing themselves out of that number 4, number 5 draft pick, but they're
Mm-hmm.
winning games. They're making it exciting to watch towards the end of the season, and there's a lot of good stuff going on there. Like if Tyson Forster and Jacob Peltier can take what they're doing in these final 6, 7 games,
Mm-hmm.
with what there's 2 left now, they can continue to build and get that positive momentum into the offseason. That's a good thing. And like I said, there's great draft prospects. You might not end up getting the James Hagans, but there's still some pretty good centers. And if you want to go away from center, there's also going to be really good best player availables in this class too.
Mm-hmm. And then of course you know the sheer number of lottery tickets that Philadelphia has amassed to this point. I think we're up to 7, maybe 8 in the draft, and you know those are also potential to get traded to next year, which is also considered a strong draft class. So, Danny Briere, Keith Jones, and that entire front office crew has really set things up well. Now they've got to execute. That's going to be the main point of contention, I suppose. Is, you know, they have to hit the draft picks, but they certainly have enough lottery tickets to do some damage at this draft.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's the other thing that keep in mind. Like maybe they do really like a James Hagans. It's not like they don't have the ammo to jump up a couple of spots to go get that pick. And there always is the lottery. Maybe they get lucky. But
I do
you
want to
look at
throw a little. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you look at the amount of draft picks they have this year, and
Mm-hmm.
it makes you wonder how many of those picks are actually going to be used. I No team needs 7 picks in the top 50. Like that is an absurd amount of draft selections. So if the
Right.
Flyers can get a little, maybe not risky, but maybe you see them wheel and deal a little bit. Maybe they can try to force some teams into an uncomfortable situation when it comes to offer sheets. Like, hey, maybe we're going to offer sheet this guy. Let's just get a trade done now. We'll give you some picks and
Absolutely. I think it's one of those things. It's funny that you brought that up because I was just about to throw cold water on that whole thing. That I don't think a major offer sheet is coming this season, potentially next year, because it really does require the Flyers their own picks, and you don't want to move. If you do a big offer sheet this year that requires a 2026 first round draft pick, that's not the move.
no,
I just
absolutely not.
I don't see the Flyers being good enough next season to move that pick. Having said that, if you're able to go the route that St. Louis did with Broberg, and those 2 offer sheets where you know they gave up a second, third round choice,
Mhm.
think there's an argument to go after somebody like a Dallas Stars and a Maverick Bork that's been playing bottom six role, but they can't pay him.
No, absolutely not. That Maverick Bork is a player that I was honestly thinking as a realistic opportunity until Keith Jones made his size comment.
Sure.
Maverick Bork isn't necessarily the biggest center. We'll have to put that one out there, but I would not deter me from throwing out an offer sheet. I don't think, what is it, $5 million is the most they can match.
So. Something like that.
If you throw out $4 million on Maverick Bork, even less, I don't think they match that.
Yeah,
now you might have to fear other teams coming closer to that, but Dallas won't match that. Maverick Bork would be an interesting option, but like you kind of said earlier, you don't want to give up that 2026 first round pick. That's why I think you could maybe apply some pressure. Like look at a cheap franchise like the Anaheim Ducks. They gave Troy Terry a massive contract. They're they're not too inclined to give Trevor Zegras that big contract that he wants, but they have Leo Carlsson next year. But the one I got my eye on this year is Mason McTavish.
Yep, absolutely. I would love
McTavish.
Carlson. They're not getting Carlson out of Anaheim, but I would absolutely love Leo Carlson.
That's kind of what I'm getting at here. Anaheim has a choice. They're going to have to either tie up a lot of long-term money into Mason McTavish, which is going to make it harder to give Leo Carlson that contract that he needs next year, especially with what they've given to Troy Terry, or they get some assets in return for McTavish, and then they commit to Carlson long-term. And I think that's a realistic opportunity. I think that is a possibility that the Flyers might jump on. And I mentioned pressuring that offer sheet. Maybe they say, hey, look, we're going to put this down. You're going to have to match this. Or before the market opens up, why don't we talk some shop here? Why don't we send you some picks or maybe a player and a pick, and in return we get the rights to McTavish, and then we can make our own contract from there. I think that might be the route they go. I don't think they'd go the traditional offer sheet route. I think they might apply some pressure and make a move to get the rights to a player, kind of like what Tampa Bay did with Jake Gensel.
It's definitely not a Danny Briere move, as in it's not yet in his history, but the Flyers did that very successfully with a defenseman named Kimmo Timonen and a forward named Scott Hartnell with the Nashville Predators in the same offseason. And both of those contracts worked out spectacularly well for Philadelphia.
Absolutely.
So talking about, well, actually, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. If John Tortorella's move to get moved away from the Philadelphia Flyers happened sooner than it did, do you think Michkov wins the Calder?
That's such an interesting question, because if you had asked me 3 days after Tortorella, or 3 games after Tortorella got fired, my instant answer would be yes, undoubtedly. But he's slowed down, and when I say that, he's still playing at an unbelievable pace, but he's not being that point per game player that he was looking like in the post-Tortorella era, like the immediate post-Tortorella era. So my thought process goes back to, he would have to compete with how easy it is to market Lane Hudson and Macklin Celebrini. And as unfortunate as that is, that goes into the voting, because winning the Calder Trophy puts you in the immediate hunt to be the next face of the league. I don't see Matvei Michkov as a face of the league. He could be the face of a franchise, best player that can alter the course of the Flyers franchise, but he's not going to be on league posters.
Not yet. I mean, once he gets a little more comfortable, the language barrier disappears. Because he already has that personality. But yeah, I think it could definitely be a couple of years. Unfortunately, the absolute worst thing that he could have faced is a stellar rookie from Montreal or Toronto or any of those big Canadian cities, because there's just so much more media that can have an impact on those decisions. No disrespect to Lane Hudson. I mean, dude's been absolutely incredible from the blue line this year.
Lane Hudson is doing things that I would have never expected when he was coming out of college. I truly thought that I didn't think he was going to be a bad player. By no means did I ever think he was going to be a bad player. But what is he at? 50 assists, 60 plus points.
Let me pull it up. I think he definitely passed 50.
He's just he is unreal. And watching him skate in person is just one
6
of the
goals,
most
58 assists, 64 points in 80
so
games.
he might hit 60 assists in his rookie season. That's just incredible. Hey, you can't look at him and not think Calder. Now, I do think this might be closer to his ceiling. I think guys like Michkov and
I would
Celebrini.
take that as a ceiling.
Oh, absolutely. But Michkov and Celebrini I think they both have the ability to smash that and become true superstars. The way Celebrini plays both ends of the ice and is still a great offensive producer is amazing. You can tell that he's going to be a star in this league for a long, long time. And Michkov is just getting away from. I do think Torts helped him, and I've
Oh, I
actually
agree.
seen it a little bit in the last couple of games where he's not going to be the back checking forward that you want him to be a long-term success in the NHL. He's never going to be that defensive guy that you can actually trust in those situations. But he still cheats, don't get me wrong. But you can see him making steps and actually making defensive plays. And it's not a bad thing. And that doesn't happen without John Tortorella. So I give him credit on that one.
Oh, absolutely. I think it was a great base layer to lay for his professional game. I don't ever really expect him to be a PK guy. Maybe in a pinch here or there just because of his IQ. I think it's high enough to do it. But I also think that the Flyers have excellent guys for the PK that they don't need to use. They can use his skills in other areas. Before we move on from Michkov, I do want to point out for Flyers fans, Lane Hutson selected 62nd overall in the second round with the 30th pick of that second round back in 2022. Just to give you an idea of the potential that this offseason holds for Philadelphia, because of the fact that those kind of players, while they might not be your James Hagans at the top of the board, if you hit the right draft pick, you can overhaul this franchise in one, potentially 2 seasons if they nail 2 drafts consecutively.
You talk about late round draft steals, not late round, late second round, early second round. Look at Cole Hudson.
Absolutely.
Was he? Where did the Capitals?
Ryan Leonard for the Capitals was a late first round draft pick. Became 2 years later the best prospect not in the NHL.
Picks will pan out. You just got to hope that they pick the right guys.
It's actually a good transition because it's a team that I've watched at least 60, maybe 70 of their games, and that's Alex Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals breaking the NHL goal record. Will, I got to ask, did you ever think that was possible?
Honestly, no, not really. I genuinely did not see a career that could break Gretzky's record. I think Ovechkin has the ability to now shatter that. He's already got the record in his pocket. He's showing that he's not slowing down now that he has the record. Part of me thought that, okay, once it started to sink in that, oh, he's breaking this record. The question then became, well, is he going to just vanish off the face of the earth once he does it? He's not.
I don't think so. I hope
he's not
in Washington for 2 to 3 seasons. I would love to see him get 1,000, be the first NHL player to 1,000 goals. I believe he needs 105, which at this point is doable in 2 to 3 seasons, which is wild.
I believe he's at 96 now, if I'm not mistaken.
90. Okay, so it's definitely one of those that the potential is there if he decides to hang around. He is 39.
That's the crazy thing. He's 39 and he's still one of the best players in hockey. Unreal.
Go figure. All right, and that takes us to the last thing that I have here, and it's something that I'm very excited to bring up with you because it's very close to yourself and your heart, and that is Penn State hockey making the Frozen Four for the first time this season. What an epic year that they had. 37 games played, 20-13-4, wins at Michigan State, at Minnesota. Awesome, experience, I'm sure, at up in Allentown, the home of the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, where they stunned Maine and then they beat UConn for their first ever appearance in the NCAA tournament.
It was an incredible season for Penn State, and I got to cover the first half of it while I was still in school, which was awesome, even though they were quite horrific at that point in the year. The season looked toast. I honestly cannot believe that they were even in a position to make the tournament, let alone go to the Frozen Four. So just that's credit to the leadership at that Penn State program, with Guy Gadowski just being an unbelievable leader, and the leadership group this year as well. Simon Mack was an amazing captain, and he'll go down in the history. Well, he literally will go down in the history books as the captain that led this team to the Frozen Four for the first time in program history. But beyond that, this senior class did such a good job with making sure that this team didn't quit on themselves. And that was the most important thing, because when you're flipping the calendar to 2025 and you still don't have a conference win, that's a point in the season where a lot of guys would just say, all right, well, let's focus on next season. Let's just get this one over with and keep going. But this leadership group helped keep the head on straight for everybody. And this is a young Penn State team that made it this far. And that's what excites me the most about this run, is that this team was so young and now they have that experience. But they kept their head on straight. I want to say they had 3 regulation losses to round out the regular season in 2025, which was just incredible. I mean, I was almost at a loss for words when they made it to Allentown. That sweep in Michigan in the Big Ten tournament that solidified it for them was just unreal. And that's when it really started to sink in that this team was getting to go.
And they competed against Ohio State. They lost in overtime, mind you. Well, not that I don't need to tell you that, but they lost in overtime.
Part of me still thinks they should have won that game. The wheels just started to fall off a little bit, but it tends to happen. They still made it to where they wanted to be, which was just it was awesome. And once I was credentialed to go to Allentown, but unfortunately that was right after the Flyers had fired Tortorella. So things had gotten a little busy there. But my old college outlet sent me down to St. Louis for the Frozen Four, which was just
awesome.
An incredible opportunity to get to go. And that Penn State team, I think, again, I mentioned that learning experience for the future. That team is so young, and all of a sudden you're going to see that flip around where that sophomore class this year with Aiden Fink, Reese Lawback, Matt DeMarco, Dane Doliak, Casey Amon, they're all going to end up being those big guys that step up and lead this next class, because they're only going to get younger, which is the crazier thing to think about. And
absolutely.
Getting that experience to go play in the Frozen Four is only going to help them learn and grow. And I also think that being exposed by a team like Boston University sucks in the moment, but for them, they're going to be able to take that and say, okay, we just played a team that is front to back loaded with NHL talent. Now we know how to compete against these teams. Like Boston University just out-physicaled them in every facet of the ice. And Jack Hughes, one of their forwards at the end of the game, had mentioned that their main emphasis was just to not let Penn State get behind them, which they did extremely well. Penn State played great off the rush. That's what got them there. And Boston University just was able to pinpoint where Penn State had the most success and made sure that they didn't let that happen, which every good team.
That's what you want in coaching of a stellar program. That's what you need.
Exactly. Yeah, but I think for Penn State to get the chance to go, and I'm not going to say the word humble, because I think they were humble to be there to begin with. I don't think anyone expected them to get as far as they did. But to be able to get to that point and just play, it's gonna leave a bad taste in their mouth, and they're just going to want to get back there next year, and they're only going to get better this offseason. They've got a lot of talent coming in. Penn State started to take advantage of the new CHO, NCAA rules. They've got a couple of great talent, great prospects coming in. Lev Katzen, who actually played on the top line at Guelph with Jet Luchenko for a little bit this season, he's coming to Penn State next year. They have this kid, Shea Van Olm, I believe. He's out somewhere in the WHL. He's another stud. They're going to get real good next year, and it's going to be even more exciting to watch.
Penn State definitely one to watch as they move into what's only their 20th season in NCAA play, which is wild to think about, having that kind of success for a school that, generally speaking, is a football school. Yes, obviously they have all of the different sports, but if you think about Penn State, you think about football, you think about the whiteout up there at the stadium and all of that. So for the hockey squad to make some inroads is definitely very exciting, to bring another premier program to Pennsylvania hockey.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's the goal with that Penn State program was always to create a place where the elite talent in the state of Pennsylvania can go and play and represent their state, not just themselves. I mean, out in Pittsburgh, there's so much fantastic hockey talent, and there really is no premier hockey program. So Penn State saw that, and they wanted to kind of create that spot where people can go. You look at Minnesota, 90% of their roster is made up of players from the state of Minnesota. Like, Penn State's trying to become that, but for Pennsylvania, because there are a lot of great hockey players that come out of the state of Pennsylvania. Oh, yeah. They just need a home to
you look
stay
at
in state.
The success that the Penguins have had in the early 90s and whatnot. You know that's going to inspire an entire generation of hockey players to take after a Crosby or a Malkin or a Letang or a Marc-Andre Fleury. Marc-Andre Fleury. You know, so it's definitely exciting. And without actually looking at the data, I would imagine that a lot of those Western Pennsylvania kids end up in Ohio. And the programs out there near Columbus and you know, in a state that does feature a lot of teams. And then you go towards Michigan, where they have the U.S. national training team and all of that. So, yeah, to be able to kind of keep some of that PA hockey talent in state is a really good move for Penn State.
Absolutely.
So since this is a Flyers podcast, let's go ahead and close on a Flyers question. We kind of touched on this already, but we'll wrap it around. With everything at the Flyers' disposal coming into this offseason, obviously they're going to miss the playoffs for the 5th straight season. And want to get that fixed, you know, they're going to have to address the goalie situation. So independent of figuring out the goalie situation, because that's obviously core issue number one, if the Flyers are trying to win next year and not go for Gavin McKenna, if they don't do anything of the goalie situation, I kind of have hopes for Gavin McKenna, but that's besides the point. So the question is, what is the most important thing for the Flyers to do this offseason outside of figuring out the goaltending situation?
I really do have a 1A, 1B for this. It's really, they could go either way, and I think either one of these two things would help give them a real good look at making the postseason next year. But obviously, you need to improve your depth down the middle. You need to find a center that can, at a very minimum, be a top 6 center. You need someone to step in. Noah Cates is an unbelievable player, really exciting to watch. He cannot be your top center. It's just
he was never designed to be a top center. The fact that he's in the top 6 is actually impressive to me.
He
shows this. Yes, absolutely, I agree with that.
He plays his role so fantastically well. He needs that pressure taken off of him of being the Flyers' best center. Therefore, you need to go out and you need to find someone that can immediately impact that. And I do think that they can go out, if they were to bring in a Mason McTavish type, he might not be your prototypical 1 seed now, but he could be your top center he already would be the top center on this team, but your top center for the future. So I think something like that is extremely important for the Flyers. But my 1B would be, you need to find another top line defenseman, top pair defenseman. I think you have a solid core for your defense for the future. Travis Sanheim is your workhorse. You can put him out in all situations on the ice.
He reminds me of Coburn from back in the day, where it didn't matter. For about a decade, you just threw Coburn on the ice, and generally speaking, things were good. That's what Sanheim reminds me of.
That's exactly it. Sanheim is your old reliable guy. You can trust him, do what you need to do. I think Jamie Drysdale, you have your future offensive weapon. He still has a lot of room for improvement in his development, but you can see the flashes of it there. You have, it's always, I always like to describe it as when you're a little kid and you want to go get McDonald's and your mom says, we have McDonald's at home. It's the same thing. It's Flyers. You want Cale Makar. You have Cale Makar at home. He's never going to be as good as Cale Makar, just like McDonald's at home is never as good as McDonald's for McDonald's.
That's fair.
But you can draw some of the similarities, and you can see it in his skating. You can see the flashes of his offensive ability. He's got a bright future ahead of him. If he can continue to build off of this great season that he's having and grow a little bit more into that offensive role while just slightly improving his defense, because he's also made great defensive strides.
Yes, agreed.
You've got a monster for the future. And then I look at everything else.
Before you continue on, I just want to say, with Jamie Drysdale, based off of what Torts said at the beginning of the season, and that the fact he didn't really know how to play defense in the NHL, immediately when I heard that, I was like, okay, this season, while it's certainly not a wash because he learned a lot, this offseason is what I targeted was the most important thing for Jamie Drysdale, because he's going to be able to now reinforce on what he's learned in this past year, which is developing a solid, solid season. So I think that's one's really important for him.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And he is a key piece of the success of the future. But then I look at a guy like Cam York, where I think they make the decision on York and Andre. I don't think they want to have two. I think Drysdale takes up one of your spots as a smaller defenseman. And I think they pick between Cam York and Emil Andre this offseason. But whichever one they go with, they'll instantly be a part of the future going down the line. So you have your three core defensemen for the future. You just need to figure out where you're going to go. You have Oliver Rubank, who could step into that role for the future on that right side. I assume they're going to finally get a resolve to the Rasmus Ristolainen situation this offseason. Sure. You would hope anyway. But you look at what they have. I think if they can get a true number one or at least top pair defenseman to pair with Travis Sanheim, so preferably a left shot defenseman, I think that sets the Flyers up for a lot of long-term success.
Well, there you have it. The what the Flyers need to be focused on, according to Will James of Philly Hockey Now heading into this offseason. Will, thank you very much for your time here today, talking all of the great stuff about the Flyers and about Penn State. And we'll be checking in with you, as we move towards next season and hopefully more exciting times to come for the Philadelphia Flyers.
I appreciate you having me, Chris.
Not a problem. Once again, you can find Will at WMJ Sports on Twitter, beat writer for Philly Hockey Now. And then, of course, where can they find your stuff from the Penn State experience out there?
That was out for the Blue White Illustrated.
Blue White Illustrated, if you want to go and check out that content from St. Louis, which from you mentioned, it sounded like an absolute awesome time. So once again, thank you very much, Will, for your time. And we'll be right back to wrap up this episode number 22 of Shoot, Another Flyers Show. I'll talk to you in a second. Muting. There we go. Hit the button early, started to talk without muting. You know what? Shoot. It's another episode of the Flyer Show, and it's live. That's how it goes. Shout out to my decorative pillow here that was dying to make an appearance in that video. So just need to make sure that Beetlejuice was seen, since it very much wanted to peek out during that entire time. So once again, thank you very much to Will for the conversation. I really enjoyed the chat, and we definitely align with a lot of what we think is important heading into the Flyers off season. So we're going to end out today with gritty question and answers. We got an email from Lee, and Lee asks, which playoff team as it sits right now is most on upset alert? Well, as it sits right now, based off of the most projected possibilities, I have the Carolina Hurricanes in the East. I really don't think the New Jersey Devils are going to win that series against Carolina, especially without Jack Hughes. But it's been a weird season in Carolina. They had the whole Mikko Rantanen deal, and they traded him for Dallas, and they added Stankoven. And it seems like a lot to pull together in 6 to 8 weeks to hit the playoffs full steam ahead. So I think if there's a team in the East that's on upset alert, it's going to be Carolina. I have been waiting for the shoe to drop on the Capitals all season, even though I think it's going to be an exciting series, 5, maybe 6 games against Montreal. I think the Caps have that one. Florida, Tampa is going to be another battle down in the Sunshine State. At this point, I think you have to trust the Panthers, the defending NHL champions, for a reason. And then, Toronto and Ottawa is going to be interesting. I don't know if it's an upset if the Leafs lose in the first round again. At what point is that not considered an upset and just another piece of history? And Ottawa's played really well towards the end of the year. So with the East, I think Carolina is the most at risk to what I would consider an upset. Out West, if I were the Winnipeg Jets, I really wouldn't want to see the St. Louis Blues. We've seen that story before where they've made a mad dash towards the NHL playoffs. But I think ultimately the Edmonton Oilers are most at risk. Made the Stanley Cup final last year, started off a little slow this year. It's been an interesting year with injuries and the Four Nations break and McDavid playing there. And it's one of those things that I think that it might be the Kings' year. They've been building for several years. LA's finally got home ice advantage in the series. They've lost 3 straight times to Edmonton. 2024 it was in 5 games. 2023 it was in 6, and then in 2022 it was in 7. So at some point you either gotta beat your biggest foe or figure out a different route. So it's going to be an interesting offseason for LA if they can't manage to get by Edmonton for the 4th straight season. And then on the flip side, it's going to be interesting for Edmonton if they lose in the first round after making the Stanley Cup Finals last year. So I think that series holds the most potential for an upset and maybe a team advancing to the second round that most might not expect. I would typically give some upcoming predictions, but we only really have 2 games left on the campaign. So we'll kind of just throw something at the wall here as I'm thinking about it. Tonight against the Columbus Blue Jackets, I think Columbus is going to scrap and fight real hard. Ultimately, a 5-3 win for the Blue Jackets as they continue to give themselves a shot in the playoffs. We'll go ahead and say Michkov has a goal in the first period tonight. And then in Buffalo, I think it's going to be one of those games that neither team really cares to play all of that much, but we'll see what happens. I could see the Flyers and the Sabres getting to overtime in that one. Let's go 5-4, just for fun. And Tyson Forrester continues to stay hot, picks up another goal in a contest against Buffalo. So that'll do it for Shoot Another Flyer Show, episode number 22. What you got here in today's episode, we talked about the Flyers and their winning streak since installing Brad Shaw as the head coach, the playoff situation in the NHL entering tonight's games. We chatted with Will James of Philly Hockey Now and talked about the Flyers season, talked about Penn State hockey and the Flyers offseason plans. We checked in with Lee with Gritty and Questions and Answers. Thank you very much for sending that along. If you would like to be featured in that segment, you can hit me up on social media at CBabosWrites on Twitter, also on Blue Sky, and Chris Babos on LinkedIn, Facebook. Well, Facebook is Christopher Michael. But you can find me anywhere. Respond to one of my posts. We'll pull your question, potentially get you featured in Gritty Questions and Answers. And with that, we'll close out episode number 22. I hope everyone enjoys the next 2 Flyers games, the end of the 24-25 NHL season. Strap in. It's going to be a very exciting NHL playoffs, and we'll check in along the way. For Shoot Another Flyer Show and Philly Sports Network, I'm Chris Babos, and I will see you later. Have a good evening, everyone.
I want you to bleed